it was the morgue. That's where I met the entity. And that begs the question as well, like, what did I meet out there in the beyond? To me, it was scary because it was like encountering something so vast, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was a scary or ill-intentioned being. It seemed to be something that was so ancient and old. Like, I do remember specifically, like, it knew me very, very well, and I knew it in some way or form, but I couldn't remember it, if that makes sense. It's like a knowing deep down inside. So I don't know if that is God itself. I don't think it is God. It could be an entity, like I've described it as the man at the edge of time as well. It's almost like a gatekeeper between one world and the next. I've described it as maybe a trauma entity where, okay, well, it's situated in the morgue. So bodies that are passing through could be at that transitioning point. They could almost be like a manifestation of the sadness and the loss and, you know, various different things. You could see all these different things. I don't have an answer yet, so I'm happy for your viewers to contribute and say, okay, I think it could be this.
This next session is with Kieran, and Kieran shares with us his traumatic experience of being hit by a car when he was really young, which led to sort of a near-death experience type of event. Out-of-body experiences also, and he was seeing entities. And as you can imagine, at such a young age, that would be, you know, terrifying. So he shares really vulnerably this story with me today, and I'm very privileged that he did. As you'll see when you get into it, there was some emotion in it, so it's still, you know, being dealt with, you know, in his adult life. And also for the fact that a lot of these things for many people in their earlier years, there's not really any support, and it's usually also not very mainstream, so there isn't anyone to go to. So for him, he had to kind of suppress it for many years, and it's only in the recent adult years that he's able to really bring it out and do some healing. So yeah, so by all means leave your comments below, but just, you know, keep in mind, this is a real experience. This is a person's real shared story, so just keep that in mind. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get on with it. So right at the start, really, because I know, you know, of course, it's all connected everywhere. That's why I was saying, like, I imagine there is a catalyst or like an initiator, a thing that starts heading your life in a different direction than maybe traditionally it was going.
Story started when I was 5 years old, and if you can bear with me, guys, because it's quite an emotional one. It's something that I had to go through therapy just to be able to fully understand what happened and to be safe enough and comfortable enough to tell the story and also kind of write it out ultimately in a book, really. And I do still say to anyone out there that has experienced something that they can't explain, don't keep it to yourself, even if it contradicts your known reality. It's often better for yourself to really just admit, even if it is a quite a challenging story, because it does open up your awareness of what reality ultimately is. And my suffering kind of came through me trying to ignore what I experienced, really. So that's my little nutshell start. So basically, when I was 5 years old, I was living in Oxford, and this was back in like 1990. I had a relatively normal life. I was pretty a normal kid functionally. So one day I was on the way to my grandmother's house, and the light was red for cars to stop and green for pedestrians to cross the road. My mum was there with me at the time, just behind me, and I was just beginning to walk across the road when a vehicle shot straight through the red light. He actually swerved around other vehicles, went straight through and hit me head on, only just narrowly missed my mother. I do remember this as a video in my head, and this comes as part of this change that happened with me, that I remember things and they're just there as images seemingly forever, really. I remember the car just coming towards me as I noticed it at the last moment. And the strange thing that starts this story off is, in my right ear, I heard a woman's voice saying, "You shouldn't be here." That's what I always remember. And then that moment, everything went black. Almost like Looney Tunes style, really. Kind of, there's like a circle that kind of closes in, then it goes black. I do actually remember seeing it like that. And I do remember like still being conscious, but everything was black, like I was in a void somewhere. And I'm not sure how much time passed. It just seemed like forever, but it came to a point where I was beginning to question, where am I? What's happening? And I came to, I'm assuming a minute or two later anyway, not long after. And I was laid on the road on the other side, and my body was in a terrible state. It was on Yeah, I don't want to go into detail, but yeah, it's very, very, very badly damaged. What had happened is, yeah, the driver shot through, hit me head on. He then tried to flee the scene and drove with me under the car further, causing further damage. He was then apprehended by, oh no, it's not great, sorry. He was then apprehended by the public, thankfully held into position whilst they called for the emergency services. And the people there were amazing, like they were on it straight away. The ambulance came over and were there to pick me up. That's the first time I remember like the most immense, intense pain. No kid should ever have to go through that. Like I have two lovely kids today, and I'm so grateful that they haven't experienced what I experienced. And like feeling your body so broken. So making my way to, excuse me, I do remember the ride itself, again, more pain. I was trying to figure out what happened. And as you imagine, I was in a state of panic. I'm giving these details because it helps you to understand what leads up to these NDE experiences. Yeah, so there's such an immense amount of pain. And at some point, I was taken to the John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford, which is a renowned hospital even today. I had a couple of emergency operations where they tried to kind of stem the body's damage and just stabilize it in some way or form. And I'm not sure whether it was the first or the second operation, but at some point I woke up essentially, and it was a reality that's like the reality I'm in right now. Previously, my legs were not in a good way and I was in a lot of pain. I remember thinking for that moment, the pain's gone and I'm standing. I was questioning, like, was what happened just before a dream or is now a dream? But either way, my instinct was to look for my mum. I started to walk down the corridor of this hospital. And I remember at that point that reality seemed a bit different. Like everything was hyper detailed. Like I could see all the cracks and different objects in this hallway. I was just hyper focused on all these different elements that made this place what this place was, and this kind of physicality. And it was almost like the world itself was made out of solid light. Like I say, it looks like this world though, but there's something about it that was slightly off, like a shimmer to it. And that's what I can remember from that experience. But yeah, I walked a bit further along, and to the right of me, there was like a doorway where there was this child in his little room. And yeah, bless him, he had like casts on. And I remember kind of memorizing the clothing that he was wearing, his facial features. It's like, either way, like I was trying to get his attention, like, because I thought that I was physically there, that he could see me. And I was waving to him saying, "Hi, can you help me? Can you tell me where my mum is?" He couldn't see me, basically. I couldn't understand why he couldn't see me. So I was a bit freaked out at that point, though, continued my walk. I saw another little girl in another room. This little girl I remember she had like a yellow dress or something, doing the same. I was trying to say, "Hey, I'm here," and nothing. I saw doctors and nurses walk up and down this corridor, and I was trying to get their attention. I remember trying to grab onto the nurse's dress or the doctor's coat, because of course I was so small. That's the thing you'd reach for. But I would just pass straight through them. So yeah, I just kept walking and walking, and it was almost like I was in this liminal place, like this place outside of reality. I walked down these different corridors. I went left, and then I went right, and saw different rooms. I just kept walking and walking, and I found myself at different levels in the hospital. And I'm not sure at what point this happened, but on how I really got there, really. But I found myself in this new hallway where, at the end of this hallway, there was this doorway and like a glass window. And through the glass window, I saw like there's a wall full of holes to the right of me, and in front of me there's like a doctor's coat and like a rack and everything and various medical equipment. And the weird thing is, as I approached this room, it felt like gravity was shifting. It's like I was being pulled into this place. It's really strange. And I have yet to have a good enough explanation for this. And I've said, in interviews recently that it's like being confronted with a paradox. So the room itself was empty, yet it was full. As I approached it, if I could see visually nothing, but there's something in there that was so vast. It was like I was walking up to a giant. I could feel the presence of a giant though, but the room was empty. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, really. But that was the feeling that I was kind of getting from it. And yeah, and at some point, it pulled me in, and that's where, like, the even stranger part of my NDE happened, where whatever I connected with there, it sped me up. It's like I began to download data and was shown different things. And I saw planets and stars and cities and people. I don't know whether they were all from Earth or other places, because it was happening so fast. And this does show my age though, but my best description is like a VHS tape. When you speed it up so fast, it begins to blur. Like you can still see the shapes and some details, but it's happening so quickly. But my poor little mind couldn't really understand what was going on because all this extra data was coming in. I didn't know what to do with it, and it was so compacted. And at one point, I found myself being transported somewhere. And I remember actually flying, which was, yes, such a weird sensation. I just can't forget it, really. I was just flying, and I saw this, at first it looked like an alleyway. And as I kind of flew up and landed on it, I saw that there were these teenagers there, just a few steps from me. And it's kind of like, as I landed, they actually jumped. And I thought at that point, can they see me now? What's going on? Because they seemed to like know that I was there. These people kind of jumped and then sort of casually kind of walked away. And I thought, this is really strange. And I realized that this alleyway was like a walkway. It's almost like a lake. And I could see all the surroundings. And it's a place that I didn't know, but everything seemed hyper detailed. I could see all the cracks and the chain link fence and various different things. Like I could see like a city with spires, and I did recognize that as my home because, again, I come from Oxford though, so you could see like on the horizon line the dreaming spires of Oxford, they call it, where you can see the university. So I could see actually this is near to where I know. Okay, so I'm beginning to recognize this place from that distance. And I saw behind me there was like a train yard with these steps going up over it. And before I could begin to work out where I was and what was going on, I was thrust back towards the hospital again, where I kind of fell into this entity. And yeah, it showed me more. And at that point, the download got faster and faster. And it was like an overloaded plug, basically. If you imagine too much electricity being blasted into like an electronic object, like it would just melt, it would just fuse, it would just go crazy. Like that's what I felt like my little brain was doing at the time. And it's completely wild. And yeah, from that point, all I can remember was like screaming out for my mum, basically. I was so frightened, I didn't know what to do. I think at some point something registered, whether it was me doing it or it decided to let go of me. It thrust me back into my body. And I remember waking up, and I'm not sure how many days after it happened. It could have been 1 day or 2 days. I don't know, because it was quite a blur after that point. But I woke up and I was in the hospital bed. My legs were kind of in casts. I had like metal bars through my the bones in my leg, and like one was kind of being supported and held up. So I physically couldn't have walked the hospital. So I began to think, well, maybe that was a dream. I don't know anyone watching this could see this as, okay, well, that could be psychological trauma. That could be a young child's mind trying to almost form a storyline to try and help to understand the vastness of a very traumatic event. Like, I get that completely. And it could also be medicines you're on at the time that could influence your perception of reality. And I would believe that. The only thing is, and this is the really spookiest part. So after that event, I went through weeks and weeks of different surgeries and different visits from various doctors to just measure and check and just make sure I'm on the straight and narrow and safer. And thankfully, they did save my life. And I'm grateful for that. And yeah, weeks went by, and this nurse came to me and said that, hey, look, you've been really good the last few weeks. You must be really fed up of being in that bed. And I said, oh, yeah, definitely. And at that point, they managed to separate me from this thing that was lifting my leg up. And I just had 2 casts on so I could be lifted from the bed. So she put me in this wheelchair, bless her, and she wheeled me down the first walkway, the corridor, sorry. And I began to see like reality overlaying like this memory, this picture that was in my head. And as she wheeled me along, I began to realize that's the kid on the right-hand side. That's the kid that I saw in this so-called dream. And there he was. And I waved at him and he said, hi. And I felt annoyed at that point because to me, it seemed like I tried to talk to him yesterday and like, why didn't you say hello to me? I was trying to kind of understand that in the way that I knew reality at that point, because it was beginning to conflict really. Like you probably were thinking, oh, was that kid so grumpy? But yeah, I was wheeled along a bit more, and I saw the little girl in there with the yellow dress. I do remember that specifically. I waved at her, and yeah, she wished her wave back. And I thought, okay, well, people can see me. So maybe was that a dream or I don't understand. The more I went down this corridor, I realized that I knew the places, I knew where to go. And I started to tell the nurse, can we go down this corridor? Can we turn left? Or can we turn right? I remember her seeming a bit unsure about that. But I think she was trying so hard to accommodate me that she was willing to do anything just to keep me happy, though, because that was my first moment of beginning to be more compos mentis and be awake and, interacting with the world. So she kind of trusted me with that. And yeah, as I went along, I saw more places that I saw in this so-called dream. And I think we went through like a lift at one point. So I started thinking, why is this kid taking me towards this lift? I just thought, okay, I'll just go with it. We went to another floor in the hospital. I think it's another children's ward where I knew where to go. And we went down like another lift. And eventually we got to a section where it was like there was a security section. Like we couldn't go any further beyond a certain point because there was a part of the hospital that you weren't supposed to enter. But I could actually see through a couple of windows. And that's where I saw it. I saw the room that was in this so-called dream, the room with the holes in the wall, and I could see a few like the coats in there and like the exact room in exactly the same proportions. And I began to freak out then because I began to realize that doesn't compute. It's like your understanding of reality is an overrided with something entirely new. And it's what psychologists call ontological shock. It's where your previous understanding of reality is completely blown apart. And it can be quite a traumatizing event. It can feel like sometimes like a panic attack, really, because your mind just does not compute.
Yeah.
And that was my first evidence of, okay, well, this consciousness that sits within us, it seems to be able to operate outside of us because it was my first time going through the hospital and I knew the whole place. How is that even possible? The weird thing is, the room with the holes in the wall, I didn't know at the time. I later found out, I had to find out years later by doing some research on the hospital and identifying the room. It was the morgue. It was the morgue. That's where I met the entity. And that begs the question as well, like, what did I meet out there in the beyond? To me, it was scary because it was like encountering something so vast. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a scary or ill-intentioned being. It seemed to be something that was so ancient and old. Like, I do remember specifically, like, it knew me very, very well. And I knew it in some way or form, but I couldn't remember it, if that makes sense. It's like a knowing deep down inside. So I don't know if that is God itself. I don't think it is God. It could be an entity, like I've described it as the man at the edge of time as well. It's almost like a gatekeeper between one world and next.
Mm.
I've described it as maybe a trauma entity where, okay, well, it's situated in the morgue. So bodies that are passing through could be at that transitioning point. It could almost be like a manifestation of the sadness and the loss and, various different things. You could see all these different things. I don't have an answer yet, so I'm happy for your viewers to contribute and say, okay, I think it could be this. And yeah, the weird thing is more things aligned with reality following this near-death experience. And
Wow.
this is the last part of the story anyway, so I'll take a breather in a second, so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I tried to be a normal kid following that event. So I went through many more weeks in hospital, various different fixings, etc., and eventually I left and tried to start what would have been a normal life. And I realized one part of this thing is after this NDE experience, I was creative. Before, I wasn't really a creative kid, but I seemed to come out of this experience with this ability to draw. And I noticed that as I began to heal and get better, my mind was working a lot faster than it was before. It's like I had these different ideas and everything felt different. So I was taking in information differently. I had this urge to draw. What got me through those last few weeks in hospital was me reaching out to one of the nurses and say, like, hey, like, can you get me any pens, any paper, anything at all? And I just drew and drew and drew and drew and drew. And I noticed that the more that I drew, the less the pain felt. I view this as a term like bloodletting, like you're bloodletting the pain, like you're passing it through the ink into the paper and you're letting it go. And I realized that over time, that was my first discovery, I suppose, of realizing, okay, well, my brain was different. And I began to realize that there is something to art itself that allows you to maybe access something better in yourself, overpower and overcome these experiences. So that was one big change after that. So yeah, I went back to school and they knew I was different because, of course, I was going to be traumatized from that experience. And during that time, of course, my mum, who witnessed the accident, had to go to court to face the man that ran me over. At the same time, she was looking after me in hospital and after it as well. So you can imagine, like, she was like, super mum, basically. She was amazing. Like, she had to keep it calm facing the man that tried to, well, nearly did kill her son, ultimately. So yeah, so there's a lot of kind of stuff happening at the time. And I'm giving you these details because it helps to describe and give context behind all this, which may better explain what happened. So some years passed, basically, and this is the last stage of this proof I'll provide to you that I had a really good friend back in the day. We'd hang out and just have fun. Like, we used to play like Mega Drive over here. Like in the US, it was called Genesis, great games console. And we used to play a lot of video games. And he said, actually, look, how about we try going to the pools this time? And it's still open today, actually, Hinksey Pools. It's like an outdoor pool in the middle of Oxford. If anyone knows Oxford well, it has terrible traffic. It's like an old city that doesn't function very well. So he said, actually, look, rather than asking my mum to drive us in there, like, I'm going to ask her to drive her to the outskirts of Oxford. And hey, look, I know this new way in. And I thought, okay, it's a bit strange. Like, I know Oxford, like, I know all the places. Like, how can you know something I don't know? But yeah, he did know this new place. So he took us to the outskirts to this village called, I think it's called South Hinksey, I believe. Basically, it's the start of a trail called the Devil's Backbone. And on the outskirts of the city, there's like some pathways that lead straight to the city. And it's kind of like through the swamp even. It's kind of through the flooded old areas that people don't tend to use to access, but it's a great cut through if you want to avoid traffic. And that's where I began to realize, as I got to the end of the Devil's Backbone, I saw these steps lead up, and there it was, the train yard that I saw in this experience that I flew. As I went down across the train yard and down a few steps onto the next level, that was a bridge over this big lake. There it was. And again, it's like reality overlaid with this memory that was fused into my mind, where I saw the teenagers that jumped. And in my body, in life at that point, I was arriving there for the first time. I'd never used that path before. And that's where I began to realize, again, I seem to have survived without my body, outside of my, vessel, so to speak. And that's where again, my poor friend, he had no idea what was going on, but I started to have like a panic attack at the time. And again, it's that shock of like, this doesn't compute, like what I was taught that we are isn't. And that's where I began to realize there's something more to all this. And through that kind of last shock, I began to kind of access some of that information that was given to me. So what was given to me by this entity, it's kind of like this compacted file, really. Like over time, I've been gradually able to unpack them bit by bit because I was too young to understand that. I began to realize there was this thing that it taught me. And it's like part of my spiritual evolution, I suppose. There is no I and me, there's only we and us. And that's a specific phrase it used. When I connected to it, it felt like it was connected to everything. It was like almost like the world tree, talking about like Norse mythology in a way. It was a connector, connecting to different places and time and space and whatever it may be. And that contradicted my knowing. When I was younger, I was raised quite religious, and I was told to believe in a certain deity, certain people, and told that you live this one life, and when you cross over, you go to heaven or hell, and that's it. That's all you got. But this thing like opened up, like it blew the lid off essentially, and showed me like there is so much more. And I had to live with that secret as a young kid for many years. I continued to go to church at the time, and the people there were so lovely, but I couldn't sit in church knowing this thing. Like there's so much more going on here. Like, what is this? Why are we here? And yeah, it was really sweet. I
Yeah.
mean, the stories are lovely. They're really sweet and all that, though. But it felt like a child's game at that point. Even though, yeah, I was a child at the time, I get that. But I felt like I'd almost like turned into an adult at that point in my mind. It had progressed and had improved. And so, yeah, I mean, that was my kind of initial kind of discovery that we're so much more, that there's something else out there. And I want to know from people, like, what do you think it is? Like, is it simply psychological trauma, like a very complex level of psychological trauma? But how can you explain the fact that it aligned with reality twice over? How can you explain how I had these gifts after the accident? I've been highly creative like for many years. I'd actually, to tell the story, I've actually also not just alongside going for treatment to help with mental health, just to prepare myself to tell this story. I've also had to learn how to speak again because my little brain, anyway, it runs so quickly, and it has ever since the accident. Like information keeps constantly wanting to flow out. I've had to learn how to slow things down enough to be able to speak to you in a way that's clear. And hopefully I'm coming across here anyway. I highly recommend anybody investing in speech therapy 100% because it's it's so enlightening having an opportunity to tell everything that's inside that's compacted and let it out. I can now kind of relax as I tell the story really. So yeah, like with this kind of upgrade, like I've had to kind of wield it better and better understand it, and now I'm kind of at peace with it. And I do admit I did go through a few years of where I was essentially like an atheist, really. Like, and then I'm not saying there's anything wrong with atheism. There's not. I completely get it. But I had to deny what I experienced because it was too frightening to accept. And it's only really until I've gotten older that I've gone, okay, it's okay to tell the story now. Like, focus on preparing yourself ready to tell the story. Like, get your power back to speak again. Like, get yourself into the right position, and let's just do this thing and accept it really. So this whole thing about being on this this wonderful podcast and others is me kind of accepting like the end of that journey and coming to peace with it and educating others really. Like, there's something else going on here. We need to start talking about it. And I shouldn't have really kept it a secret for so many years, but I was so worried about being told I was evil, I was stupid, I was just making it up, all these different things. Because to people that haven't experienced it for themselves, it can be really hard to accept. And I get that too. Because I do kind of discuss about the three states really. So we have believer and non-believer. Like a non-believer will be like a skeptic, for example, and both of those completely okay. But both of those are also the same technically, because they're making a decision based on the lack of knowledge or knowledge yet to be acquired. And then there's the third state, which is the experiencer. And the experiencer, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends how you see it really, is given empirical knowledge of like, there's an absolute now, either you accept it or ignore it, but either way it's there. So you don't have the luxury of believing or not believing and making that choice. So unfortunately, I'm one of those experiences, and I had to reluctantly accept there was this whole thing going on really. So yeah, so now I'm kind of a much happier person. I'm glad. Well, I say glad. I am telling the story, I suppose, but I hope that inspires others to tell their story. And maybe for those who are skeptical about this kind of thing, be open to the fact that there is a bit more going on here. And if so many people are talking about this kind of thing, we all can't be making things up. There is a link and there's a commonality here. So yeah, so I'm gonna have a drink of tea now and take a breather.
Wow, what a story. Thanks for sharing. And I can imagine that must have been like just horrendous for such a young child to be thrown into, not just the trauma of the actual accident, but then the reality being cracked in front of you and not having any idea what's going on and nobody to turn to help or to just explain or anything like that.
Yeah, it's an experience that I can't fully explain. I can use words to explain it here, but it's never going to be enough. But just imagine the world being pulled from under you, and then you realizing that it's not necessarily a lie, because people are telling you these things in good faith, believing that's what the world is, and then you discover there's so much more. I hate the corny kind of representation, really, though. But thinking about the film The Matrix, where Neo is presented with a blue or a red pill kind of thing. In a way, the blue or the red pill represents belief and non-belief, because you've been presented with a reality. Like, do you go down the rabbit hole or do you not, basically? And then Morpheus takes him through ultimately and shows him the real reality. So yeah, I mean, there's a richness to this world that I appreciate now. And I'm kind of glad that I'm operating a bit more, I suppose, more beyond those parameters defined for me. And yeah, I mean, I do kind of wish, there's still parts of me that kind of wished it never happened, because all I've ever wanted for many years was just be a normal person. It's just not to have this extra processing. It's quite a burden, really. Sometimes it can be, I've referred to it as the burden of knowing sometimes. Like, sometimes you know something, not everybody knows it. Part of you wants to tell people about that, part of you doesn't, because you don't want them to go through in a way what you went through. And yes, it does enlighten you, but I do kind of question, is it more comfortable sitting within the parameters and being, again, Matrix reference, if you guys have watched the film, there's like a Cypher. Yeah, Cypher, the character, he chooses to go back into the Matrix because he can't handle it. So for him, he's miserable doing that. I'm not really miserable because I know, but either way, the comparison's there. Like, he chooses to go back. Like, could I have the opportunity to choose to go back and forget about that? I don't think I ever could, really, because really it's like an unveiling of what's already there. Like, I haven't really discovered something. I've unveiled what's behind the reality ultimately is something I maybe would have known before this life. Maybe I'll say more confidently. I think I did know about this before. Yeah, well, that's the rich tapestry of reality of us learning about life. It's why I love channels like yours, really, because you're poking the brains of many people out there, whether they believe or don't believe, whether they've experienced things. You're opening up the conversation and putting it on a fair and decent platform for people to go, okay, well, that's rubbish. I believe in that. Or, okay, I need to ask some more questions to learn more about it, which is very different to the way it was about even 20 years ago, really. Like, it would be like the no thing. Like, back in the community I grew up in, like, you weren't allowed to talk about these kind of things. And like, now we have more opportunities to do that, but we also have to trust people and their
Yes.
reactions, really.
Yes, exactly. On that side, it's wonderful that we are living the times we live in because things are opening up and people, I feel like in my reality, that people are literally opening up themselves to more possibilities. And it doesn't mean
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
just become gullible and believe everything you're told, but
of
it
course.
means
Yeah.
that it's just not kind of like the old way where it's limitation and keep things within parameters and boxes. And outside of there, nobody looks. Now it's more like, let's look everywhere and figure it out. Like, what are we here on this planet for?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the key of this all, really. Like, what on earth are we here for? What is our purpose? I don't think I have the answer just yet, but I kind of see us like we're in a school right now. It's kind of like a sandbox of insanity, really. It's like all of the wars and the hate and the anger passing through and eventually discovering love and unity and connection and breaking apart the separations, really. It seems to be like we're in this place to progress and be given these experiences. So I played around the idea of like, a God of some sort experiencing itself. So how can a God ever achieve true enlightenment if it's not able to operate within limited bounds, as it split itself to experience itself? Maybe that's a possibility. I just don't know. But a long time ago, I used to pray to one God. Now I don't really know. I mean, I don't know if I believe in God or not, but the concept of God itself to me is almost irrelevant now. We don't need to put a name or a label on something. Something out there just is. It's just an energy. It's a consciousness. It's something. And yeah, what I haven't told you yet as well. Like, I don't want to go into too much the scary side of things, really. But what I think is really interesting is this thing. It was either this entity or I think something that came with that experience when I was out of my body. Something followed me back home and affected me for many years, really. And I'm not sure if there's something that happens with other NDE people, but I do remember like this kind of thing that I saw for the first time still in hospital, but just towards the end actually. Anybody could say this is sleep paralysis, a hallucination. I get that, but this was pretty gnarly to say the least. I was sat in my bed, and I remember I remember everything in pictures though, so I can see this in my head as clear as day even now. Unfortunately, at the end of my bed, I saw like a dome, and it's kind of like it was black with gnarly skin. It's like I began to realize it was the top of a head, and it rose up, and I saw these hands appear over the protector of the bar, and these two white eyes were peering out from this darkness of the skin, and it didn't move or anything at that point. It just fused there and watched me, and I felt like I couldn't move either. Like I was actually partially sat up in bed, but I couldn't move at that point. And I tried to call out to the nurses, because at that time it was night time. I could see the nurses in their station. It was like a dimly lit area in the corner. So I tried to call out to them and I couldn't use my vocal cords. And this thing just sat there and watched me. And it was the most awful feeling. Again, it's like that feeling that I encountered that in Paradox, where something vastly more powerful than me was there, just watching me and not doing a thing. You're thinking, okay, what happens? What am I meant to do here? And eventually I passed out. I don't know whether it decided that it was done with me ultimately, or if I passed out. Either way, like I couldn't forget that image and I just wanted to get out of that hospital at that point. I just couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, what happened was years later, we had poltergeist like activity in our house. We had objects moving. We had unexplained smells like cigar smoke. We had music, very loud music playing like a party in the middle of my bedroom at the early hours of the morning that couldn't be explained through like various vents nearby or various things passing between properties. It was still a mystery. And we also had whistling in the house, and the music and the whistling was witnessed by my sister and my mother and my friends. So these are shared experiences. So I do remove that from a hallucination when multiple people are witnessing things. You can have shared hallucinations as well. So that could be another factor though, but either way, not like a localized hallucination. So like things kept ramping up in that property where we had objects being thrown. We had kind of possessions. Yeah, and ultimately kind of culminated in this thing warping the reality of my bedroom, which sounds completely wild, I know. It got to a point where after a number of years, like the energy had got to a point where it was beginning to shift reality. And that's where I had to call for the help of a friendly medium. At the time, I thought mediums were jokes. I thought they were all frauds because I was taught to think that way.
Yeah. With religion, was it?
With religion, yeah, like I hate the fact that religion taught me to hate. I don't. Well, maybe I'm not wording that so well. It's not the religion itself; it was the people that assigned to it, though. So maybe I learned the hate from the people, not the religion, if that makes sense. I don't want to mention which religion here, anyway, because I don't want to misrepresent them as well. Because I do believe there is some good in it too. Like a friend of my mum's, I remember meeting her for the first time. It's like she scanned me. I was really freaked out, thinking like, did I do something wrong? She could tell something was really like, I thought maybe I had a bit of wind, but either way, like I felt like something was off about her. I'd never felt something like that before. And it was similar to when I met the entity, like gravity kind of drops when paranormal things seem to happen with me. And she kind of sat down with me and said, look, okay, your mum knows me, but she doesn't really know that I'm a medium. She described to me what a medium was. And she says, if it's okay, like with your permission, your mum's permission, like there's something wrong here. I need to do something to help you. Like, I know that you've been experiencing these things. And she listed all the different things. And some of the things my mum knew about, the other things my mum didn't know about, not even my sister, because they were too extreme for me to share at the time. Because my mum was a single parent back then. Like, you do have that pressure of like not adding more of a burden to your mother because she's trying to support you both and get you through life. So we were very, very poor back then. Like, so, yeah, again, that's partly why I kind of kept this story to myself and just got used to it, really, because you just don't want to add to the burden of a very already burdened family. Yeah, she explained herself to me, and I thought, oh, do I trust mediums? But something in my gut just said, just go with it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? If she's going to be fake, then nothing would happen. It can't get any worse than this. Yeah, she went to my bedroom and identified the exact location where I'd see this entity. What I haven't told you at this point really is I would see this man in the corner of my bedroom some nights, just stood there, and that was the very same. I say a man though, but a creature really. The same creature that I met at the end of my hospital bed all these years ago. And at this point, like a good 8 or 9 years had passed. So he had 8 or 9 years of these intensifying hauntings.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. We grew up in this property that I've encountered things that I can't explain. Like, I'm really into my science. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form. But I love science because it's the human attempt to try and explain or make tangible a reality that we don't quite fully understand just yet. And I love the expression about putting a blanket around the unknown to give it shape. That's ultimately what religion can be to us. That also sometimes science can be to us as too. Yeah, but she came to me and said, like, okay, these things are happening right now. And as she began to speak to me, I remember I couldn't stop shaking. It was almost like I was having a seizure at the time. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I don't know what's going on. She said, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like, your body's going through a lot of shock for what it's seen and all that. And you're beginning to let it out now because you're safe. It's okay. And yeah, bless her. Like, she said, look, okay, I'm going to deal with this thing. She says, I know you've been seeing this thing. I said, what thing? I haven't told you anything. I know. Don't lie. I'm going to deal with this. And she started to get really annoyed at me at that point. She says, stop hiding. You keep hiding it all these years. You keep keeping it to yourself. She says, stop it, So I trusted her. So yeah, I kind of left her in my bedroom. And at this point, I'm talking secondhand. So I didn't experience this part firsthand. So my mum stayed with her while she dealt with this thing. And what this lady and my mum told me about what happened, she began to talk to this thing and it started to insult her, like shout abuse. And I don't want to swear on your channel, don't want to get you in trouble though, but yeah, just saying very not nice things to her. It was jumping from one side of the room to the other, knocking boxes over, throwing things at her. The room was kind of shaking. It was like, it's proper and apparently a very intense moment. Again, I have to say I can't vet that because I wasn't there. I can understand, I can believe it to an extent because we were witnessing these things around the house. But But yeah, eventually she managed to force this thing, and she realized actually over time it had attached itself to me. And it was affecting the way I was interacting with reality in terms of like making me feel awful and affecting the way people interacted with me, because people would burst out in anger at me. I mean, I'm quite an annoying person sometimes, I get that, and I probably was as a kid too, but I had these intense experiences where people get rapidly angry. Notice like their eyes would change, they wouldn't quite look alive. It's like they lose their gloss in a way and they start to act in a very strange way. And yeah, like she described all these different things. And yeah, so basically she ultimately kind of separated me from this thing that was affecting me in this way. And the weirdest thing was after the event happened, I woke up the next day and for the first time I felt like gold, even like I felt like an entirely new man. I felt happy. Like at that point, I wasn't seeing my friends enough really because I just felt so kind of grumpy and miserable and exhausted by this thing. I felt like my future was open again. All of the activity in the house completely stopped. I didn't see this thing again. I wasn't affected it by any way. And the weirdest thing was, and this is my third example of what I've have seen being validated in reality. I asked her a while after, okay, well, for one, thank you for doing this thing. It seemed to have worked. I asked her kind of what it was, and I don't remember her saying exactly what it was, but she says it was some sort of energy that had built up in the hospital itself, and it seemed to be attracted to me because I seemed to have the light switched on after that experience where he can see me. I'm going to go straight to him and see if I can get some energy from him. And she described how this thing looked. She said it had gnarly skin, very dark, white glowing eyes, and long, kind of almost spindly fingers. A very tall man in the room. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up when she said that. Like, that particular being, I hadn't described to my sister or my mum that I was living with, no friends, no family, nobody. Sometimes I had mentioned a man in my room when I was younger, but I never just described to my mum, so that couldn't have been passed to this lady because only I knew it, unfortunately knew it. I can't explain that to this day. Like she saw it, and that's when I began to realize actually this whole mediumship thing, there's something to this. Maybe I should treat this with a bit more respect. And this lady, like, she never charged me any money for it at all. Like, she's just like a friend. Like, you saw somebody else needed help. Like, this poor kid is having an awful time. He's had the trauma of an accident to get over. Had a lot going on in life at the time. Like, she just wanted us to help. And like, she's somebody I included in my book, Paranormality, like, as just an example of just the kindness of strangers. Like, I mean, to my mum, she wasn't a stranger, she was a friend, but to me, she was a stranger. Like, I didn't know her very well. I invited a stranger at a time when my life was particularly awful. So yeah, there are some mediums out there that are frauds that take advantage of vulnerable people. The vast majority, and this lady including, are some of the most loveliest, kindest people you could meet. And they're so enlightened in such a way where they see beyond the bounds of body and I suppose everything that makes you seem like you ultimately, whether it be your race, your religion, the country you're born in, the clothes you're wearing, whatever your vessel may be, anointed in, ultimately she sees you for you and they see you for you. And that's the thing that kind of further validated by the fact that I seem to be more than just this body that I'm sat in, really. I mean, I kind of wish I accepted this sooner and I spoke about this sooner. So yeah, so that event happened with my friend and all that, and I kept stum really for many years as an adult, and I couldn't tell my the people, because at that time I was beginning to start college as well, so I couldn't tell them, my friends at college, about that. Like going to university, I couldn't say it. There did come a point where actually, yeah, like I mentioned, I became atheistic really, so I just denied all of it happened because it was more comfortable to accept it that way. And like, and there's no offense to my friend that helped me, but I had to be that way. And eventually I came to realize actually that I need to kind of let this out. This is really like almost hurts you inside. It's kind of like in a way, it's kind of spiritual constipation. It's a horrible phrase really. Like sometimes you just got to let it out. You just got to let it out because like it got to a point where like things were knocking on the door, so to speak, where I was getting signs of like, you've been ignoring us for all this time. You've been ignoring this story. Like you need to really let it out now and like come to peace. Like, yeah, you feel happy after you were separated from this, but you had this burden of knowing, let it out. This is my constipational release.
Sounds like your life was not meant to be that you'd have all these experiences and just keep it inside. it was supposed to come out.
It seems to be, and I apologize, but I really hope that this helps people to understand that these things do happen. Again, you don't have to be forced to believe in anything. This is just this is a new comparable I'm presenting to everybody out there that will give you a moment to think and maybe expand your consciousness and realize there is more. So yeah, I do feel like in some way, what form now, I was meant to share this story, but I don't like saying that, to be honest, because I don't want to appear egotistical, because I'm not important. I'm just an everyday guy. Like, I pay my bills, I pay my mortgage, I pay my taxes, I do the washing up. I just live everyday life ultimately. I don't see myself as anything particularly special. This is something that has been thrust upon me to go, okay, just let it out there, just trust in the world and leave it to do its thing ultimately. Like I said, this could have been passed to anybody at any point. Yeah, but the good part of this thing is really this extra awareness thing. So it does help me a lot in day-to-day life. I'm highly artistic. My mind's able to run particularly quickly when I need to, which has helped me through the career that I have. Really, I'm really grateful to have the job that I have, and I don't feel like I would be able to operate at the level I do in the career that I have if I didn't have this process. It's not quite, there's a phrase called acquired savant syndrome, where after head trauma, for example, people can wake up with the ability to play music, for example, or new languages, or I understand mathematics, like amazing. It's not that. It seems to be something different. It's not a breakage in the brain itself. It's an access to a higher level of whatever I am, really.
Consciousness.
Yeah, ultimately consciousness is like ultra. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and yeah, it is exhausting sometimes. And like I said, I had to go through a lot of practice, a lot of training to be able to do it, really. Because I used to be a really nervous speaker as well. I do remember, like, back at university, we had to do dissertations every year, where we had to do like big essays about certain subjects, and at the end of it, we had to stand in front of a crowd and tell our stories. And I couldn't even do that then. I tried to, but I thought there was something wrong with me then. But every time I spoke, it was so fast, nobody could understand what I was saying. But the information, everything I needed to say about the essay, it was a great essay. I really enjoyed writing it though, but I couldn't speak because nobody could understand me. And I remember spending those years thinking, like, there's something wrong with me. Everybody makes that horrible scrunched up face when I talk. Like, maybe I'm not good enough to be heard. And now to be in this position, now to, talking, on your podcast, it's amazing to show that I've overcome that as well. And also, it wasn't a dysfunction. There was something that I received when I was a kid that I never fully addressed and embraced, really. So now I've accepted it. I'm able to speak better and more clearly about very high concept things. Yeah, and sometimes this little thing that I'm connected to, like, it gives me information. It gives me like little moments of like nuggets of knowledge. For example, like, tell me if I'm babbling too much as well. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, any questions. I don't mind.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I've got some questions, but carry on. They'll wait.
That's all right. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll say, tell me to shut up if you want me to shut up. It's fine. So it's kind of like, I spent all these years compacted. Like, now I'm talking, I can't stop talking as well, because it's such a relief to be able to communicate. It's like, I can't tell you. But yeah, what came with this extra awareness really is like this ability to, like, I call it peeking around the corner. It's not like super psychic or anything like that though. But for example, there's a time where this thing that I have, like, I don't know if it's like a spirit guide or a higher version of myself, just like peeking over the corner saying, heads up, this is on the way, be careful of this. I was coming back from a night out, and I arrived at Oxford Station, and it was quite late. It was like 12 o'clock at night, maybe 12:30. And I was the only person leaving the station. And as I exited the car park, there's like a little bridge I had to go over that's over this road. And then I kind of turn right to go to where my bus stop is. And I approached the start of the bridge, and I saw this man on the other side, and he had like a little plastic bag with him. He was wearing like I don't know, like a tracksuit or like a jumper or something of some sort. I don't know, but I sort of spotted him. I didn't really think anything of it though, because I've been on that journey so many times, been through Oxford, all that time, never had any issues. And the moment I took one step onto the start of that bridge, I saw the word knife in big letters. It's kind of like overlaid reality. It's almost like I stepped back for a moment because I thought I was walking into a solid object. It's like boom, and I thought, that's weird. That shouldn't happen. What's going on? Maybe I didn't. I came back from a night out, but I don't really drink alcohol, so I didn't come back drunk. By the way, I just wanted to make that clear as well. So I don't. I was fully kind of compos mentis, as we say. back then. So I began crossing and I had this feeling in my stomach that something's up. Maybe like a spider sense, I suppose, the best way I can describe it, really. But looking at him, like the man seemed friendly enough. Like, he smiled for a moment, as you tend to do when you don't know people. You give that people that little friendly smile to say it's okay, it's safe. But in my gut, something felt wrong, and I began to react to it, like prepare myself for something that was coming. And I kept thinking, why am I doing this? Because it's fine, it's no issues. Stop thinking the worst of people. And just as I approached, I was like an arm's distance away, where my vision began to kind of come into focus. I'm quite short-sighted, by the way, so back then I wasn't wearing glasses. Obviously, I could only see close up. So as I approached, I saw his bag come into focus, and I could see something sharp sticking out of it, just glistening in the light, like the moonlight, ever so slightly. And I knew at that point, there it was. He had like a knife in his bag, like it was already unveiled, like sticking out ever so slightly. He went down to grab it. I immediately like kind of pivoted, jumped back, and I tried to kick my leg out forward though, but I didn't have enough room to kind of kick him over, but I kind of kicked him like with almost my knee, really, nudged him out the way and dodged and just ran. And I did that before he could pull the knife out because I knew what was coming. So I just ran. I mean, I didn't run to my bus stop. I ran all the way home from the middle of Oxford to where I was living at the time, which was like, it'd take about an hour basically. It was a long way to run because I was so adrenalized at that point, like, because you would do that. I was so frightened that, but at the same time I kept thinking, if I didn't know that, things could be very different. Although I don't know what he would have got off of me because I was, back then I was a student. I didn't have much money anyway. Like, what do you think is going to happen? But you don't know people's journey and why people do these things, so we can't judge too much. But either way, like, that's when I began to realize, actually, like, I went through all these years of ignoring this thing. It's knocking on my door now. And it's literally showing itself in reality. Like, I need to pay attention to this. Like, I know you don't like the fact that you're not normal. Everybody knows that. You need to embrace it now. You need to really start trusting this thing. And that's where I started to go on this journey of acceptance, of slowly unpacking what I learned, that thing I experienced when I was 5, and going through it was almost like layers of sediment in the earth, really. Like, I don't even think about archaeology, like when you cut a segment of land in half and you can see layers of time, like that would be the Bronze Age. Exactly, yeah. And there's like layers of time, like the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, in a way that was the way the information was delivered to me. Like, over time, over many years, I've slowly unpacked bit by bit those little knowings from something that was more powerful than me, whatever it was. And yeah, through that, I've kind of just been able to access the things that I was given then. So yeah, it's like I said, I would like to be normal, but it's not really meant to be. But that's where I kind of pose the question, like, what is the paranormal really? Which is why I wrote the book Paranormality, because I hate the word paranormal. The paranormal is like the modern day word magic. Because a long time ago, when people didn't know what things were, it was seen as magic. And, a long time ago, people used to believe that only the gods could make fire. And then when people began to realize this is how we do it out in nature, well, that must be magic because I don't know the process behind it. In modern day, we tend to call it the paranormal. It's parallel to the defined norm. But I pose the question, like, if people, like, I'm pretty ordinary, if things like that can happen to me, and through my podcast, Paranormal Perspectives, and it's happened to other people too, like that, is it really paranormal? Is it just simply a normal that we haven't accepted yet?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So hopefully through the conversation, I'm hoping to kind of break the barriers of, like, we say that it's paranormal and like that's the scary fence. We don't talk about ghosts and hauntings and stuff like that. That's the defined reality. When you break apart the word paranormal, it's breaking apart that barrier around and then embracing the unknown and going, okay, it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to simply say, oh, I don't know. You don't have to call it paranormal. You don't have to call it all these different phrases like magic, for example. It's just a form of it's a part of our reality we've yet to understand or have the capacity to understand just yet. So yeah, now I'm not scared of the paranormal. I'm literally going on a ghost investigation at shot this Saturday. Weirdly, I actually felt very uncomfortable in like a party or a disco, like social kind of dynamics of that situation is really hard work for me. But put me in a haunted castle anytime, no problem. It's fine. I just seem to be at peace with communicating whatever is there, really. So yeah, now I'm just not scared of it. And it's that lack of fear as well that has expanded my knowledge base far more. So I'm a much more compassionate person. Like, I love people of all different beliefs and backgrounds and non-beliefs and atheists and all at different stages of our journey of understanding. And the more time that has passed, I realize that humans have created barriers for our access to understanding the greater universe, really, but to also learn about each other. we still have this kind of tribalistic mindset of you're from that culture, you're from this culture, you wear these clothes, I wear this clothes, this is this person, this is that person, I can't speak to this person, I can speak to that person. All of it is complete and utter BS, completely BS. Like, all cultures deserve to be together, all people deserve to be together. Humans are one species, literally, scientifically one species. There are no separators between. Once we realize that, we begin to realize how silly we are in our fights.
I also feel like if we can flip the narrative and instead of everyone trying to be normal, let's celebrate being different. Like, we're the same, of course, but celebrate being different. And that way we can get curious about ourselves, about others, and then about things that are outside the box as well.
Of course. That's the thing, that there is no different, really. So again, difference definition. Someone decided this is our optimal human, and their optimal human life and the way life should be lived. Anything outside of there is different. We don't accept those. But who decided that? At what point in history do we go, this is the way things are, this is the way things are going to be? And why did you decide that? That's the thing. Like, once you break apart that, you progress. You grow so much more. So yeah, I would like to think I'm a less judgmental person now. I'm not perfect. I still do make mistakes, but I just see people for people. That's what we are. We're just energies sat within a body. Like, I've used the description before. Like, I try to describe things in like everyday terminology, really. Like, hopefully this is understood. But like, do you drive a car, Paul?
Yes,
are you a driver? Yeah. So I'm a
Yes.
driver too. So whatever brand car you drive, when you get to your destination, when you leave your car, do people call you by the brand name of the vehicle you were driving?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So people, when you leave the car, obviously they're going to call you Paul because I know you as Paul. But the way we treat our bodies is like, when we leave our bodies, we still see ourselves as that person that we were living in this life. But we seem to have all of our consciousness, all of our ducks, so to speak, placed within this body. This is the I and me. No, we're the we and the us. We're so much more than this. So in a way, I see like my body. Like, even though I'm grateful to have this body, apart from my humongous nose, anyway. But either way, like, I just see my body as like the vehicle of car that I'm driving. And once you begin to separate yourself from that as well, you begin to move away from the pain of being, really, and understand that I'm just at this moment in time, at this, it may be right that you may be at this moment in time just once, but you are back again. You'll be living other lives, driving other cars, so to speak. And that makes life so much more wonderful. And yeah, I do believe we're here just, it's almost like, it's a cosmic university, really. Like, we're here just experiencing, driving different cars, learning from different experiences, going through sometimes really horrible things, sometimes really beautiful things. But each experience progresses us and evolves us in some way or form. So I thought about my past and thought about the man that ran me over, the man that he had to go to court for that. He got away with it ultimately. Like, he paid like next to nothing. He was actually a very, very well-off man. He could have done a lot to help my very poor family. He did nothing. He did the very, very bare minimum. He didn't go to prison. I don't know who he paid off to get away with it, though, but obviously he tried to flee the scene. So there are always different aspects around that which are identified as the kind of person that I was dealing with. There are points in my life where I thought, okay, I feel so angry because I'm going through all this pain and all of this has broken my reality and I'm living all these consequences, and all you've done is pay a tiny, tiny amount of money and just headed off into the sunset and just carried on living your life. And through this experience, I've kind of looked back on that and, yeah, like I said, being quite angry and frustrated, and that, and following other events that kind of went through as well. But now as an adult, I'm so glad that happened with that man, and I wish him all the best, and wherever he is now, living a great life. And I do know he's crossed over many years ago. Wherever he is now, I hope he is happy and has learned from that experience. And I don't have any hate or anger, and this acceptance and this knowing has helped me to let go of things that are just awful, and awful actions taken by awful people. And it's enlightening. It's a wonderful feeling. And yeah, I'm probably going to meet some horrible person tomorrow. Like, things do happen. Like, but I don't feel affected by it now. I feel very much like, you're having a bad day. I forgive you. It's okay. Like, see the greater picture going on here. I see what's going on with you. Like, if they're not going to, hopefully punch me in the face, so I'd say something like, you okay? Can I help you at all? Like, do you want to go and grab a coffee or something like that? Sometimes breaking through that kind of barrier of like whatever they're going through at the time can help to identify that it's not about you, it's about them. and what they're going through and what they're presenting to you, because they're expressing their anger and their frustration and things like that. So, yeah, man, I don't want to sound like one of those spiritual yogi people at all. I'm not like that at all. I don't walk about with incense. I mean, I do love incense and all that, and act very well to do. And I'm above you and this. That. I'm not. I'm an idiot, just like anybody else out there. But I'm just saying what I know and what I've learned ultimately. So I say I'm completely imperfect, and my views change day upon day as well. Sometimes I may have a different interpretation of what happened. It could be like next week I learned something new which may help me to identify what happened. So
yeah. So on that, I wanted to ask you a couple of things, because you mentioned a few times the paranormal, and I know you sort of head in that direction, but like now as an adult, looking back on the whole experience of the crash, and then we could say it's the out of body experience in the hospital, and then right through to what you know now with paranormal. What's your understanding of all of those sort of, let's say, spiritual side of things? Is it all kind of the same thing, or are you distinguishing between them?
I get you. Paranormal is the human parameter. The spiritual aspect of it is what lies at the base, basically. Like, so the paranormal is a label. The whole spiritual side of things is a knowing. It's a rediscovery, if that kind of makes sense, really. So, paranormal events, spiritual events like NDEs, for example, they're all combined because they are layers of reality that we're slowly kind of peeling away. Because in our human bodies, we only have 5 senses. Technically, we have six senses, you could argue, but our 5 known senses, we can only experience the world in a certain way. So we're so limited in terms of understanding what happens within this reality, let alone what's happening behind all this, and going beyond within our current body. It's only when we step away from this body and move on to our next chapter that we re-access that, in a way, spiritual body, in a way, really, like we have access to everything kind of reconnected to the network mainframe, so to speak. So paranormal events are kind of a mixture between kind of human perception and understanding of our known reality, and that kind of other level of vibration slipping through and seeping through. And I've spoke to many people over the last couple of years now on my podcasts that have seen friends that have passed over just after finding out they've died. So this lady, a good friend of mine, knew her friend many years, saw her every day, saw her the day before. Suddenly her friend barged into her house, I believe her bedroom, had a full conversation with her, and then just dematerialized in front of her. And she thought she was having a hallucination. And that's her. And then she got the call a couple of hours later that her best friend had passed away suddenly. I think earlier in the day or the night before. She'll correct me, I'm sure, though. And that's the thing, like, it happens. She seemed to access another level of vibration that you wouldn't normally see in the day-to-day for whatever reason. And it could be that, we're at a certain vibration in this reality. When you're up and beyond, you're at a higher vibration. And when they want to communicate with you, they can lower your vibration. They can lower their vibration enough to be able to interact with this reality in a tangible way. So just to show themselves for a moment in time. So it could be that they're descending, I suppose, into this reality. And sorry, I realize this is quite a jumbled up answer, though, but I'm just answering honestly as it comes out. That's my understanding, really. It's just simply like a lens at which you view and observe this reality, I suppose. That's the paranormal.
Okay, cool. And so how does that relate to when we try to understand like frequencies and dimensions and realms and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is growing and changing over time, really. Everything's frequency. Everything's frequency. So everything, it's scientific fact as well, every molecule within this reality is constantly vibrating, and different levels of density vibrates at a different frequency. So solids vibrate at a certain frequency. Airs, non-solids, ultimately, do it as well, just to form their shape. And what's to say that there are other vibrations that we are able to operate on? This vibration allows us to tangibly be here in this reality, to keep our molecules together for this moment in time. There are other levels of vibration that seem to be kind of greater, and I've spoken to people that have encountered higher entities. They call them ascended masters, or some people use the word angels to describe them. Again, angel's just another label people put onto something. Like, I don't know what it is. I'll call it an angel kind of thing. But there are these higher beings, like very powerful beings. People's experience when they meet those things is actually fear. It's not because those things are scary. Some people experience fear because they are being they're kind of falling in face to face ultimately with like a higher level of vibrational density, and they can't compute. And again, it kind of falls into that feeling of ontological shock. It's like, oh my God, there's something more. It's like, I've just left a tiny room. I've just walked into this open expanse. Like, how big is the room and how vast is it beyond this point of perception? And it's kind of like that when you're dealing with these entities. Like, sometimes you can respond that way. So from that learning, I've began to understand that thing that I met in my out of body experience, that higher entity. Maybe I was feeling that because I was dealing with a higher vibration of something. That's what made me kind of think, okay, there are entities out there that operate at a higher frequency. Yeah, I mean, literally, reality itself is just frequency on frequency on frequency. I've heard it being said that, and forgive the corniness though, that love is the highest frequency. Like, love is actually the highest level of vibration that is like the ultimate gateway key to access the universe itself, that universal understanding of peace and all this different thing. From the people that I've spoken to, like, love is an actual vibration. It's a real thing. It's not just simply a word that we use to describe when we like somebody a lot. It's much more than that. And it's something that people experience through their NDEs. Like, I've heard people that have flown through mystical worlds and felt this overwhelming feeling of love and connection and had a really happy NDE. And I kind of get jealous of them sometimes, thinking that, well, you had a kind of a nicer NDE. I kind of want to have one of those, but mine was quite, overwhelming, really. But there seems to be, like I say, points at which we encounter different vibrations. Again, like I mentioned, that it could explain what we define as the paranormal is. Different vibrations are kind of clashing in some way or form, or vibration is lowering to enter our vibrational state.
Yeah, so I'm curious what's going on in the paranormal exploration that you're, obviously it's certain frequencies, but what are you exploring with that?
Really, I don't tend to kind of put myself into situations to deliberately experience, a paranormal event often. Like, every now and again, like I said, I mentioned I'm doing like a ghost investigation this weekend because I want to see if I can observe another shared experience, shared activity again, because I kind of find that fascinating. But also I'll be doing it with somebody who can record with certain technology, like tangibly, like certain events as well. I'm kind of curious to see how that can work, really, because I haven't seen what I've seen and experienced being recorded and repeated through devices sufficiently yet. Anyway, so I'm kind of interested to see that. So, but generally, like, unusual events just tend to come to me. They just tend to happen, like weird connections that I can't explain. And I know I shouldn't really use the word weird though, because again, weird is just another label for something. I don't want to deal with that. That's weird.
Just different, maybe just different.
Just different, yeah. That's a good word to use, difference. So yeah, things do kind of still happen to me that I can't explain. It's like certain knowings. I'll tell you actually one really sweet interaction. Actually, it really made me smile. A while ago, in the UK we have what's called a car boot. So like, I think in America you call it like a yard sale. I'm not sure where else I'm not sure like New Zealand way you guys would call it anyway, if there's like a term, but we have car boots over here where you just sell it. Either way, like, we have that. So we're just getting rid of a few items because we were planning to move at that time. And I had this like moose head on my wall because I bought it a while ago, because it's like, it's not a real moose head. It's like a stuffed toy, like made to look like a moose head that you can hang on the wall. And no, I didn't call it. Sorry. I used to see it every single day, basically. And it used to just make me smile as I would go to work. And at some point I decided, okay, I just don't need this anymore. I feel like I know that I need to get rid of this now. And I don't know why, because I quite like it, but I just know that I needed to get rid of it. That makes sense. It's like a weird knowing. So yeah, so we're there at the car boot sale, and I was playing all the things out, and I looked at the moose head thinking, oh, do I really want to get rid of that? Because I really like it. It just makes me happy. And like, a voice came into my head, said, call it Steve. Call it Steve, and say you call it Steve every day that you go to work and it makes you smile. Call it Steve. And I thought, that's weird. Am I imagining that? But the voice was so loud in my head, I questioned, was it me? Was it something else? Well, I thought, okay, that's weird. It kind of made me smile. I thought, okay, you're just being silly now. Yeah, a man approached my stall, and it's this elderly man. He looked really, really sad. I could really feel that he just felt really down in the dumps, really. Like, I could tell something happened. Like, I mean, I can't confirm for sure because I didn't ask him at the time though, but I felt like he lost somebody. I don't want to ask a stranger that as well because it's quite awkward though, but I just had a feeling again, I can't validate that. But anyway, he approached the stall and seemed really sad. He was looking through my things, and he discovered the moose head, and he said, "Oh, that's really nice." He said, "How much do you want for that?" And I said, "Oh, just £5, whatever." I said, I think it's time to get rid of it now. It's time to go." And for some reason, I told a complete stranger. I don't. I'm quite an introvert. I don't tell people stories like this. Like I just don't like it at all. I told him straight away, "This is called Steve." I told him that I see Steve every day. I said, I've loved looking at Steve every day, and I always give him a wave on my way to work every morning. And he says, "Oh, that's really strange." He says, "My name's Steve." And I said, "Are you joking?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to have to buy this now." Like the biggest smile appeared on his face. Like he immediately changed his posture. He couldn't stop laughing. He says, "That's it. I'm going to buy Steve." And he says, "I'll pay you £5 for it." And I said, "No, you have it. You take it for free. It's fine." And I said to him, "Yes, so make sure you give him a wave on every day when you go to work." And he says, "It's okay. I'm retiring soon anyway, so I won't have any need to wave to Steve." But he said, "I'll do that." And yeah, it's just a little interaction. How did I know? I mean, it could have been coincidence. I could have just pulled a name out of nowhere and said that. But a specific name came in my head, and a specific sequence of word I had to say happened to align with what needed to be said at that moment in time. And that man, bless him, went from being really sad to really happy, and that just makes my day. And it's weird. I don't understand it. Like I said, I keep accidentally, I'm not doing it deliberately, like peeking behind the veil a little bit every now and again. I keep dipping just behind, and I'll get some information, and then poof, I haven't used it for information to get to it. It improved my life in any way for me. I haven't used it to win the lottery or anything like that, though, because I'm never going to use it for that. But it's just if I can help somebody and just say the right thing, I've learned to trust it more now, and usually it's correct. I mean, there's been a couple of times where I've said it, I've said it, and they haven't really said anything to that, but I've never had that's not true, that is true. They seem to react to it quite, oh gosh, okay, that's a bit of a shock, which is interesting. So yeah, like I said, like us ND people, like we come back like remade in this way of form. And I don't know whether we simply access what machinery is already there, it gets switched on, or you going back into your spiritual body again, then coming back in again, you bring some extra things with you. So yeah, I mean, with that experience, obviously I had PTSD, different forms of trauma. I had to go through various different therapy to help my legs to heal, all sorts of things for many, many years. A lot I had to go through to get there, but with that, I've got this extra brain working for me, really.
And with, you mentioned earlier that you have this new ability of creativity. Is another one of those things along the lines of the mediumship or something? Because what you were just mentioning sort of sounds along those lines.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it is. I didn't realize after going through a time in my life where I thought more mediums were fake, and then discovering that actually they are real, and never once considering that I could be one myself, because I couldn't accept that. I don't like the social stigma. Like there's less stigma today, but it still happens. But if you just simply say that you're a medium, people immediately go, you're just trying to take advantage of people. They always, for some reason, think of somebody who's up on stage charging people to tell them very loosely rough facts that may, align with their reality. The mediums that I've met are a true force of nature. They're unlike any human that I've met. The stuff they come out with is unbelievable. And then one day I came to realize, I think I'm one of them. I began to say things that align with reality. And then it just kept happening more and more. And I came to realize, actually, like, I think I'm one of these guys. I eventually told my friendship group, and their reaction, I was kind of expecting some ridicule, something silly there. That their reaction was, well, duh, obviously. Like, why has it taken you so many years to realize that? Which is really nice, I suppose. I'm still reluctant. I still don't like saying it. I don't like using the word because that comes with a stigma. So that's where I make the joke, I'm a small, not a medium. And that's the joke. So I feel like in a way I'm a part-time, like I'm not a full-time medium as in doing it as a job or something to help people. I'm just like, I'm a small, really, like I'm just dipping in and out as and when I need to, really. I'm not kind of doing it as okay, I'm doing this to make money, or I'm doing this to get fame or whatever. It's just, okay, I'm just a person doing things to help people here and there. And I have so many stories like that, really. Yeah, so I need to be more comfortable with saying it, and I'm not 100% comfortable yet, though. But yeah, it is true that I am. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Wow, this has been an amazing journey we've just been on. I want to thank you because I I need to come back down to earth now.
Yeah, sorry about that. If you want to send any more questions after the interview, feel free. I'm happy to, if anybody wants to ask any questions, below this video, I'm open to it, really. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
But thank you, thank you. I can feel that it was a very emotional journey at the start there and very vulnerable. I really feel privileged that you've shared it. So thank you.
And thank you for trusting me. Like I say, any old bozo can make these stories up. I do realize that, though, but some of us go through some tremendous anxiety and pain and all sorts that you go through these experiences. And to step out on a platform like this and trust the world with understanding your story, like I say to anybody, you don't have to believe it. If you do believe it, that's great. If you don't believe it, that's okay too. But just to set an example, it's okay to talk about these kind of things. And if you don't like people talking about these kind of things, then you're just not ready to know yet. And it's okay. I don't hate you for that. But we need to really start talking about these kind of things because it's part of our healing, really. But I know my story has helped a lot of people out there too now. It's beginning to kind of saturate the world, really. And people are coming out saying, look, I had this experience and I didn't know what to say. I mean, there's no psychologist I can speak to explain these experiences, nor scientist, nor doctor, nor whichever, I mean, I do recommend people do speak to people, mental health professionals, if they do need to as well. You should never discount that, or speaking to your doctor. But there are some things that are outside the known realms. I do believe they will be explained by science one day. I do hope so. The whole spirit and science connection I do see in the future.
So, and I'll leave the links to your book and to your YouTube as well in the description below. Is there anything else you want to leave people with?
Yeah, it's just those two really, because my book's out there ultimately just help educate people. Like, I put it on the site. I've placed all this story into a book, and the book's designed to be like an open invitation. Like, hey, look, these things happen. Like, if I provide you some evidence, will this invite you onto your own adventure and inspire you to start your own adventure, to learn more about life, really, about learn more about what you believe and don't believe in. And that's the whole idea of these things. And it's the same for my podcast too. Like, I'm getting more people on who are telling their stories. And just, it comes to the phrase normalizing the paranormal. That's ultimately what everything kind of falls on into. And if you normalize it, normalize talking about it, you'd be amazed how peaceful the world eventually gets when we break down those barriers and learn from each other. So yeah, if you don't mind dropping the links in below, if anybody wants to ask any questions, there's a little contact form on both of those links somewhere. Ping me some questions. I'll do my best to answer you. If I don't answer you straight away, please don't be annoyed at me. I do get there eventually. I'm a very slow typer because I have quite short, stubby fingers, really. Usually I write an email and then I spend like 5 minutes correcting all the spelling. And then because I have OCD, I go and reread it 3 times. So to send like one email takes me like half an hour sometimes. So I do get there eventually.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. So normalizing the paranormal, great phrase to leave it on.
Absolutely, yeah. Appreciate you, Paul. You guys take care.
So now, after watching that, you might understand what I was referring to at the start, that how Kieran was very brave and very vulnerable in sharing his story. So it was a wonderful story. So I really appreciate it and feel very privileged. And also the fact that he spoke about the mediumship that he's engaged in, and also the paranormal activities as well, which, often from the mainstream are very sort of demonized. So the new phrase is making the paranormal supernormal. So I think that's a great phrase to finish on. So leave your comments below, and thanks very much for watching.